Have you ever been in a room full of people, maybe even people who care about you, and yet you feel absolutely nothing? Not anger, not joy, not connection, just a dull, invisible fog pressing between you and the rest of the world. You're there physically, but your soul isn't. You smile, nod, maybe even laugh, but inside you feel like a ghost wearing a mask. Why does this happen? And more importantly, what does it mean? Carl Jung, one of the deepest minds in the history of psychology and philosophy, had an answer. Not a cheap one, not a feel-good one, but an answer that forces us to confront something most people spend their entire lives avoiding: the unacknowledged self. In the first few minutes of this video, I need to ask you something honest, not as a content creator, as a human being. What if your emotional numbness isn't a flaw, but a warning signal? Not a malfunction of your psychology, but a deep alarm bell from your unconscious, trying to tell you, you are not living your truth. You are living someone else's life, and your soul is going silent in protest. Jung believed that when we suppress parts of ourselves long enough, our real thoughts, our dark impulses, our unexpressed creativity, those parts don't just go away. They go underground, into what he called the shadow. And when that shadow grows too large, we don't explode, we go numb. It's not that we stop feeling, it's that we stop feeling authentically. Let's break this down. Why do you feel numb around people? Because according to Jung, most of us are not actually meeting others as ourselves, we're meeting them as our persona. The persona is the mask we wear to survive in society. It's the role we play, the polite employee, the agreeable friend, the funny one, the smart one, the stable one. And we learn this mask early. We learn what parts of us are acceptable and which are too much. So we push the unacceptable parts into the shadow. But here's the problem. The more you rely on your mask, the more distant you become from your core. Eventually, the mask becomes so convincing even you forget who you are beneath it. And in that disconnection, numbness is born. This is not abstract philosophy, it's observable. Think back to the last time you felt deeply alive. Were you performing for others, or were you fully in yourself? Maybe it was late at night alone, playing music no one else would hear. Maybe it was writing something raw, or speaking a truth that scared you. In those moments, you touched your authentic self, and that self is not numb, it is electric. But the more we live inauthentically, the more we exile that aliveness. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But most of us spend our lives becoming who others need us to be, and then wonder why we feel dead inside.
So what's the philosophical dilemma here? It's this: is it better to be accepted for a version of yourself that isn't real, or to risk rejection by showing who you truly are? That's not a rhetorical question. It's the central question of individuation. Jung believed the greatest task of a human life is not success, survival, or even happiness, but integration. To unite the conscious self with the unconscious, to bring the shadow into the light. And that means facing the very parts of you that make others uncomfortable, the parts you were told to hide, the parts that don't fit in. Because when you deny those parts for too long, you don't just lose your uniqueness, you lose your feeling of aliveness. You become a hollow actor in a play you didn't write. Let me tell you a quick story. A man goes to a party. He laughs, drinks, chats, it all looks normal. But inside, he feels completely detached. Afterward, he goes home, sits on the edge of his bed, and stares into nothing. He doesn't know why he feels this way. He just knows he always feels this way. But what he's never asked is this: Who am I trying to be at that party? And who am I hiding? Jung would say that man is not just socially anxious. He's spiritually fragmented. He's lost contact with the core of his psyche. And the only way back is not more socializing, not more pretending, but more truth. The truth of who he is when no one is watching. The truth of what he really thinks, feels, fears, and wants. Truth, not comfort, is the cure for numbness.
Now we enter the deeper terrain. Jung warned that if the shadow is not confronted consciously, it will control us unconsciously. This is where things get dangerous. You might feel numb in public, but reactive in private. You might feel pleasant on the surface, but secretly resentful underneath. You might say, "I'm fine," while your unconscious is screaming, "I'm not." This split creates psychic tension, and if it isn't resolved, it doesn't just make you emotionally numb, it makes you psychologically unstable. Jung saw this in his patients who were overly nice, overly agreeable, overly adapted. They weren't thriving, they were disintegrating, slowly, silently. So how do we begin the repair? Jung didn't offer a quick fix. He offered a path, a process of self-confrontation. And it begins with a terrifyingly simple question. What am I pretending not to know about myself? Sit with that. Don't rush it. Let it haunt you, because the moment you stop pretending, life starts bleeding color back into your numbness. You feel things again, not always pleasant things, but real things. And that's the beginning of wholeness. Not perfection, wholeness. A life where you don't have to wear a mask because you've come to peace with the person underneath it. But let's be brutally honest. Most people don't want to feel again. Not really. Because feeling requires risk, vulnerability, loss, grief, anger. And most of us are terrified of those things. So we choose numbness. We choose the safety of the mask. And we cope. We scroll. We distract. We self-medicate. And we tell ourselves, this is just how life is. But Jung would disagree. He would say, this is not life. This is half life. And the tragedy is that we are not even aware of how much we've lost. Because numbness doesn't scream. It whispers. It convinces us that emptiness is normal. So I want to ask you one last question before we continue. What would your life look like if you felt fully, deeply, and without apology? What would it cost you? And what might it give you back? That's not a casual question. It's a key. A key that unlocks not just your emotions, but your authentic self. The self that doesn't need to perform. The self that doesn't feel numb. The self that knows who it is, even in a room full of masks. That self is not gone. It's waiting. Beneath the numbness, beneath the mask, beneath the fear, we hide because we're afraid. Afraid of judgment, rejection, humiliation. But there's a deeper fear underneath all of that. The fear of being seen, truly seen. Because being seen means being vulnerable. It means owning the parts of yourself that you've buried. The anger, the jealousy, the confusion, the weirdness, the wildness. Jung called this buried dimension of the psyche the shadow, not because it's evil, but because it lives in the dark. And the thing about shadows is, they grow when ignored. Every time you fake a smile when you want to scream, every time you say it's fine when it isn't, every time you betray your truth to fit into someone else's comfort zone, your shadow expands. And one day, you wake up feeling empty. Not because you have nothing, but because you abandoned everything that was real in you. This is the paradox of social survival. The more you adapt to please others, the more dead you become to yourself. Jung was radical in saying that adaptation is not always healthy. In fact, over-adaptation is a kind of slow death. Society trains us to be likable, polite, palatable, but your soul doesn't want to be palatable. It wants to be whole. It wants to be true. And when you suppress your truth long enough, the emotional body shuts down. You stop crying. You stop laughing from your gut. You stop feeling excited or scared or inspired. And you call this getting older, or being mature, or just how life is. But Jung would call this a psychic injury, a wound of inauthenticity. And the longer you leave it untreated, the more numb you feel in the presence of others, because you are not with them. You're performing next to them. So what does it mean to reclaim your soul? It means risking exposure. It means daring to bring light to the shadow, not to destroy it, but to integrate it. Integration is not about fixing yourself. It's about including yourself, every part. Even the ones you were told are too much, the sadness you hide, the rage you suppress, the loneliness you deny. The truth is, those parts don't make you weak. They make you human. And when you numb them, you numb your humanity. That's why you feel so disconnected in social situations. You're not just hiding from others. You're hiding from yourself, and your unconscious knows it. That's why it withholds your full emotional presence. Because presence is only possible when the self is unified. And most of us are not unified. We're fragmented. Jung would say that the path to emotional aliveness begins with radical honesty. Not honesty with the world, honesty with yourself. What are you pretending to enjoy that actually makes you feel hollow? Who are you spending time with that leaves you more drained than nourished? What emotions are you swallowing because you don't think they're appropriate? These questions are not comfortable, but they're liberating. Because the moment you name the lie, the numbness begins to thaw. You don't have to solve everything. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to stop pretending. Stop pretending to be okay when you're not. Stop pretending to be someone you're not. Stop pretending that numbness is normal when it's actually a signal that your soul is suffocating. Let's go deeper. Jung believed that what we reject in ourselves, we project onto others. This is crucial. When you deny your anger, you see others as aggressive. When you repress your sadness, you judge others as too emotional. When you hide your vulnerability, you call others weak. And this projection poisons connection. You're not meeting people, they're just mirrors for the parts of yourself you've disowned. So, when you feel numb around people, it might not be because they're fake. It might be because you're seeing your own disconnection reflected back at you. And this is where the real work begins. The work of reintegration, of calling back the lost parts of you, not to fix them, but to listen to them, to hear their story, to give them a place in your life again. This process is not easy. It's not glamorous, but it's sacred. It's the path of becoming whole. And wholeness doesn't mean you'll always feel good, but it means you'll always feel real. You'll walk into a room and no longer feel like a ghost. You'll speak and actually mean the words. You'll laugh and it won't feel hollow. You'll cry and it will feel like a release, not a breakdown. You'll be able to sit across from someone and not wonder, what do they want me to be? But instead, can I meet them as me? That's freedom. Not the kind you post on social media. The kind that lives deep in your bones. The kind that makes you radiant, not by trying to impress, but by simply being whole. To become real is the most terrifying and liberating thing a human being can do. Not real in the sense of being honest about your favorite music or your political opinions, but soul-level real. The kind of real where you stop performing altogether, where you no longer filter every word through the question, will they like me if I say this? Where you no longer shrink your presence to make others more comfortable. Jung taught that authenticity isn't a trait, it's a consequence. A consequence of facing the parts of yourself you were taught to fear. Your darkness is not your enemy, it's your doorway. The moment you stop running from it, you begin to reclaim your light. And when that happens, something miraculous unfolds. Your relationships transform, not because the people around you change, but because you show up as a whole person. Think about it. We don't connect with people through perfection. We connect through truth. The moment someone drops the mask and says, "I'm scared, I'm confused," or "I feel broken, something sacred happens," you trust them. You feel less alone. You recognize yourself in them. But most of us are so busy trying to be impressive that we forget to be intimate. We perform competence, cleverness, charm, but we never reveal. And because of that, we stay emotionally starved. We wonder why our friendships feel shallow, why our conversations feel scripted, why our love feels conditional. It's because we're not giving the world our real self. We're offering a curated avatar. And avatars can't love. Only people can. But love requires presence. And presence requires wholeness. And wholeness requires the courage to say, "This is all of me, not just the pretty parts." Jung believed that the real gold of the psyche is hidden in the shadow. Not the surface, not the persona, but the rejected depths. The parts we've labeled too much, too weird, too dark. And here's what's wild. When you finally face those parts, you discover they're not monsters. They're exiled gifts. Your anger, it's your voice that knows how to say no. Your sadness, it's your capacity to feel deeply and care profoundly. Your fear, it's your instinct to protect what matters. Every emotion you've repressed has a function. Numbness is what happens when you cut off the supply line to your inner truth. But when you welcome those feelings back, not as enemies, but as messengers, you begin to feel again. And not just feel, you begin to live.